Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadil ladhin istafa amma ba'd. Fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wa man ahsanu qawlan mimman da'a ila Allahi wa 'amila salihan wa qala innani minal muslimin. Sadaqallahu al-azim. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given the ability to come early to His house so that we can gain some knowledge of deen. The week before last week, we were mentioning we started with regards to practicing deen according to the Quran and the Sunnah. Then we went on to mention with regards to the students of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After that, we mentioned with regards to one of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, Hazrat Abdullah bin Masud radiallahu anhu in detail. Then we went on to with regards to those who are tabi'een. And from amongst them, we started mentioning with regards to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, which we got through halfway. Inshallah, we will continue today with regards to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi. Then we will, inshallah, in the coming weeks, we will discuss with regards to Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi, Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah alayhi, inshallah. With regards to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, we were mentioning, and we started with regards to his beginning of his life and he was very particular with regards to staying away from doubtful things, abstention from doubtful things, to such an extent that once there was a stolen lamb, bakra, चुरा हुआ बकरा था और वो दूसरे बकरों के साथ मिक्स अप हो गया था Kufa में. So there was a stolen lamb in Kufa and it had got mixed up with all the other lambs which were grazing in Kufa. So they said, now there's all these lambs and the food, the qurbani meat that we do with these lambs, it is in one of these lambs, but we don't know which one it is. So what shall we do now? So this great Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, he made inquiry and he said that how long does a lamb live? Kitne saal ke liye ye andaza lagaya? So they said, the experts said for 7 years, 7 saal ke liye. So accordingly, the Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, he abstained from eating meat, from lamb meat for 7 years. For 7 years. He said, just in case, in that 7 years, if I had partaken of that food, of that stolen lamb, then there would be some food in my body which would go, which was not permissible for me. So he abstained from eating lamb for 7 years altogether. So you can see, this is taqwa and fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, level of a person of his fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's so much abstention that they could have eventually found out also, maybe it's this lamb or maybe it's this lamb and you can eat the other meat. But he had so much fear of Allah and he didn't want that he totally abstained for 7 years from eating lamb, that not even that little bit of doubt would enter into his body. There's another incident with regards to him as well, that he was a tradesman. He used to trade and he sent on the trade errand. Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, he clearly repeated, pointing out a small defect in the cloth, कि इस कपड़े में कोई कमी है, तो जब आप उसको बेचें तो ये कमी बता देना उनको. That he said to the person, the people who are working for him, that in this cloth there is a deficiency. So when you sell this cloth, make sure you tell the person this deficiency in this cloth. However, at the time of the sale, Hafs rahimullah, genuinely he forgot that your great Imam told me that to mention this deficiency in this cloth, and he sold the cloth without telling the buyer what was the deficiency in the cloth. When the sale went and the great Imam was given, and he made a profit of 30,000 dinars from that cloth, a profit of 30,000 dinars. Immediately the Imam inquired and he asked him, that did you mention to the person the defect that was in that cloth? वो कमी जो थी उस कपड़े में आपने उसको बताया? Did you tell him? So then Imam Hafs rahmatullah alayhi said, you know what? I forgot. I sincerely forgot, and I didn't tell him. So immediately the Imam, what he done is that 30,000 dinars that he got in profit, immediately he gave it all in charity. So look at this, just for a defect that he told one of the Imams who was working for him, that you must mention this little defect which is in this cloth to this person. And the profit, you can imagine how expensive that cloth was, that the profit was 30,000 dinars, yeah, gold coins. And the Imam sincerely, he forgot to mention that deficiency, and when he asked him and he told him that, you know what, I had forgot, sincerely, you know, I had forgotten, I didn't do it by purpose or anything, but yet he gave that 30,000 dinars straight away in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in charity, that I don't want of that wealth which I had told and mentioned that there was a defect in. Although the person who bought it, he was happy with the cloth, he bought it, he was happy with it, but because he had forgot to mention with regards to the defect of that cloth, so he gave all that money away in charity. So these are very important things, what a person eats, what a person wears, what a person earns. If it is through halal sustenance, then there will be barakah in a person's life. There will be barakah in a person's life. And even the actions that they say, the ulama and shuyukh, they're gone to mention that even the actions from the body that come out will come out likewise. So if a person eats haram, if a person, his clothing is haram, his income is haram, his actions which will come out from his body will also be of similar. Incident with regards to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, with regards to his patience, his sabr. Says once there was a person, he had hatred for the Imam, something for the Imam, so he thought that he stood up in the gathering while the Imam was giving dars in the masjid, and he started using vulgar language at him and tried to disgrace the Imam in front of the people. But he saw this was to no avail. So after the majlis had finished in the masjid and the Imam was walking to his house, so this person followed the Imam and he carried on, using vulgar language at him, saying to him bad words. The Imam did not utter anything at him, but quietly lowering his head, carried on walking home, listening to whatever he had to say. When we reached the door of his house, Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi turned around to him and said to him, "Oh brother, now I have reached the door of my house. If you have something else to say, then you can say to me to your heart's content, because now I have to go into my house." So this person, having that ill hatred for the Imam, he said, on another occasion, this was his, you can imagine that he would accept anything. If someone said bad to him or used bad language to him, he never used bad language back to them. This is the akhlaq of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which we have to inculcate. Another incident comes that there was a youngster, he came and he slapped the Imam, Abu Hanifa rahmatullah, he slapped him. So what did the great Sheikh do? He didn't slap him back. He said, "Brother, I am also capable of slapping you, but I will not slap you. I can complain to the Khalifa of the time, but I will not complain to the Khalifa of the time. If I want at the time of Tahajjud Salah, I can complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I will not complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also." But he said, rather, on the day of Qiyamah, if I achieve success, if I am told that you can go into Jannah, if I achieve success and my prayer is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then I will not go into Jannah without taking you to Jannah with me. So look, the person that slapped him, he refused that I will slap you back. He said, I am capable, I have the capability to slap you, but I will not slap you. I can complain to the Khalifa of the time, the king of the time, the ruler of the time, but I won't complain to him. I can complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the time of tahajjud, but I won't complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if on the day of Qiyamah, I am successful and I'm told that you can go into Jannah, then I'll plead to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I don't want to go into Jannah until I take him with me into Jannah. So he's done something bad to him, but in return he wants good for him. This was the akhlaq of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You know, our elders, our ulama, our shuyukh, the tabi'een, tabi'een, the sahaba radiallahu anhum, they inculcated the akhlaq of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As far as possible, they would try and inculcate the akhlaq, the character of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam within themselves. The akhlaq of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, this is what will bring people closer to Islam. This is what will bring closer to deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the tawfiq to inculcate the akhlaq of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in our lives. Once there was a sheikh, his name was Abu Ali rahimahullah. He relates, once I was sleeping near the grave of Hazrat Bilal Habshi radiallahu anhu in Damascus. When I observed a dream, I saw in a dream, wherein I was in Makkatul Mukarramah, when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam entered through Babi ibn Shaybah, affectionately carrying a vulnerably aged person, very old person in his lap. Judging to my amazement and wonder, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said to me, this is Abu Hanifa, Imam of the Muslims, and is a resident of your country, Iraq. So this was all glad tiding with regards to Imam, and we should also remember the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that that person who sees Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam in his dream, then indeed he has seen Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in his dream, because shaitan cannot take the form of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So this was one of the glad tidings with regards to this Imam, who was at that time when he was residing in Iraq. The Imam would also engage in a lot of istighfar when he would teach, and if he was stuck with regards to some masail and he could not get the meaning of it, then immediately he would resort to istighfar. And he would tell his students as well, if you cannot understand something or something is wrong, anything, then you should always resort to istighfar and your problem will be solved. It is like that incident with regards to Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu. Someone came to Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu and said, what should I do? I do not have children. So Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu said, make istighfar. Another person came, asked Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu, what shall I do? I do not have wealth, barakah in my wealth. Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu told him, make istighfar. Another person came with another worry, that what shall I do? Something else, that I don't have this. Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu gave him the same answer, make istighfar. And then he pointed with regards to the ayat of the Quran and said that in everything you turn to istighfar, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you barakah in your wealth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you pious children. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you everything. So istighfar is very important. And our ulama mentioned, especially nowadays, we should make the most important dhikr for us is istighfar. Why? Because we are always committing sins. We are always making mistakes. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was ma'soom, he was free of sin, yet he used to make istighfar so many times every day and make tawbah in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who are we? We are always committing sins, knowingly, unknowingly. So we should make istighfar even more. The Imam, his intellectual brilliance was so great. Once there was a Roman philosopher. He came in the Khalifa's court at the time in Baghdad, and he boasted and he said, I have 3 questions which nobody, no Muslim scholar will able to answer it in the entire ummah. What this Roman philosopher said. So the Khalifa of the time became agitated and worried that what shall I do? So he gathered all the ulama and the shuyukh. He told them to come, all the great scholars. Come. And amongst them was this Imam Abu Hanifa, who was still a young boy at that time. In some incidents written, he was only 10 years old. So when they were there, so this Roman philosopher requested, he said, to ask these questions, I need to sit on the minbar, on the pulpit. So they gave him, okay, sit on the pulpit and ask your questions. So the first question he said, inform us who existed before Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala se pehle kaun tha? Uski pehle sawal. Second, inform us in which direction is the rukh of Allah. Humko bata do ki kis taraf Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ka rukh hota hai. And the third question he said, finally, inform us what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing at this present time. Humko kaho कि इस वक्त अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला क्या कर रहे हैं. So the whole audience remained silent. All the ulama shuyukh were there, remained silent, perplexed that these three questions he has asked, Roman philosopher, and the Muslims were about to be humiliated. So this great Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, was still a young boy. He stepped forward and he said, let me answer the questions. So this philosopher laughed at him. What, you little boy, you're going to answer my questions? So he said, no, let me answer your questions. So first he said, the questions you are asking me, I need to also, climb on the minbar pulpit to answer your questions. Because just like you have, so the people can also hear what my answers are. So accordingly, the Roman philosopher, he got down from the minbar. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, being a young boy, he ascended the pulpit in the minbar. And he said, the first question which you asked, that inform us what exists before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He told the Roman philosopher, count numbers. So he counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now Imam Abu Hanifa told him, the young boy told him, that count it backwards now, reverse. So he said 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then he asked him, what comes before 1? He asked the Roman philosopher before 1. So he said, there is no number before 1. 1, sifr, before that there is no number before 1. So the great Imam told him, if nothing exists before Wahid Majazi means the hypothetical one, number 1. Nothing exists before number 1. Then how is it possible for anything to exist before Wahid Hakiki? How is it possible for anything to exist before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Accordingly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, therefore there is nothing before one Allah. Look at the answer. That was the first question. The second question he asked the great Imam, the second question was asked, inform us in which direction is the rukh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he told him, bring a lamp, and he lit the lamp. And the great Imam told him that in which direction is the light of this lamp going? Which direction is the light going? So the Roman philosopher said, in all directions, it is going in all directions. So the great Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi commented, a lamp is a created entity. It is makhluk, it is a created entity. The light of which even you philosophers accept that goes in all directions. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the creator of all creation. So how is it that you can question with regards to the rukh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He said, nevertheless, the rukh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala faces all directions. Just like this light, the light is going through all directions. And this light is the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator. So the rukh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also in all directions. Then the third question, which he asked, the philosopher asked Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, that what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing at this present time? So he mentioned that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing at this time is that He has taken you down from the pulpit and He has put me up on the pulpit. What did he tell him? He has taken you down from the pulpit and He has put me up on the pulpit. So at this, the philosopher was quiet. He had nothing to say and ashamed and went away. So this was his intellectual brilliance which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given the Shaykh Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi. He was very honest. He was a trader. He used to trade in buying and selling this particular cloth which was known as kaz, which was a very expensive cloth and very famous cloth at that time, which people used to like and buy. So he used to trade in this business. But his business was such that he had 3 departments. One was the manufacturing department, the other was the warehousing and the distribution, and the third was the retail. On this, Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi used to have workers, and he used to pay them, and they used to do the work. And although he had this trade of business which was very, wealthy and would give a lot of money, but yet he had sacrificed all his time that he would give it to ilm and knowledge and deen, and he would spend his time in gaining knowledge and spreading deen. He would leave his business to those who used to work for him, and he would spend his time in with regards to ilm, knowledge and deen. He would always want good for people, and he would always think good of people. Once a person asked Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, Sheikh, what is your opinion of a person? What do you think of a person who prefers to be a Muslim? He says he is Muslim, but he claims this. He says that I don't desire Jannah. I'm not scared of the fire of Jahannam. He openly eats maita, carrion, dead animals. He prays salah but does not perform ruku and sajda properly. He testifies without having witnessed. He prefers fitna, strife, and detests haqq. So he likes to commit things evil, but with regards to haqq, he lives it. He flees from the rahmat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he testifies to the statements of the Yahud and Nasara. So they asked him, what do you think about this person? And he says he is a Muslim. What do you think? So the Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi said, this is the answer he gave. The desire for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is dominant in every person. That's why he desires that instead of having Jannah, have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll have everything else. So you see how he made the ta'wil with regards to this person. He says he is afraid of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why he doesn't have fear of Jahannam. If he has fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he doesn't need to fear the fire of Jahannam. He says he eats fish, because fish is also a dead animal, is maita. And he says he performs salatul janaza, wherein there is no ruku and sujood. He says he testifies to tawheed, to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He recites kalima shahada, where he has neither observed, he hasn't seen Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he hasn't seen Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It appears in the glorious Quran, your wealth and your children are only a fitna, a trial. So that's why he says fitna goes to fitna. And he says the rain is the rahmat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He protects himself from the rain. So this was the Imam. He was making whatever with regards to any other person, a believer, was said in the negative, he would always make ta'wil of it. He would always think good of that person. So this is what it is. When we are told with regards to someone, one is you see a Muslim brother walking in the street, he's got earphones in his ear. One is you think in your mind, he's listening to music. Another you think in your mind that he is listening to the glorious Quran. Always think good. One is you can hear the music, then you make dua for him. You explain to him, brother, this is not nice, this is not good. Rather listen to the recitation of the Quran than music. You see? But wherever a person can, he should always think good of his Muslim brother. However, the Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, going to the end of his life, he was told to be made the qazi of that time, the judge of that time. But he had refused to become the judge of the time due to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stating that the person who is putting himself as a judge, as a qazi of the ummah, he is like as if he is sacrificing his life. So due to the fear of this, and he refused. Due to this, he was put into jail. He was tortured, and eventually he was made shaheed, became a martyr. At the time of his death, over 50,000 people had attended his janazah salah and performed his janazah salah. And his janazah salah was made 5 times more in different countries of the Muslim world at that time. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi's students were Imam Abu Yusuf rahmatullah alayhi and Imam Muhammad Shaybani rahmatullah alayhi, who in turn were ustads and teachers of Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah alayhi. Now inshallah, in the weeks coming, inshallah, we will discuss with regards to their lifestyles, inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.